Imagine this. You have waited years for this moment. You saved every dollar you could find. You begged your parents to take you. You stood in line for hours before the gates even opened. And now you are inside Estadio GNP Seguros in Mexico City, surrounded by 50,000 people. The stadium lights are blazing, and BTS is right there in front of you. Not on a screen, not in a fan cam, but physically there just meters away. The music is shaking the ground beneath your feet. The light sticks are painting the entire arena purple. And something about the combination of all of it, the years of waiting, the love you have carried quietly for so long, the sound of the songs that got you through your hardest days, just completely breaks you open. And you start to cry. You are not alone in that feeling. Not even close. But what happened to one fan inside that stadium on the night of May 7th, 2026, is something that thousands of people are still talking about days later. Because in the middle of one of the biggest concerts of the year, on one of the most anticipated world tours in music history, Jimin saw her. And what he did next is exactly why ParkJimin is not just one of the most talented performers alive. He is one of the most genuinely human ones. Let's talk about it. Before we get into the moment itself, we need to set the scene properly, because the context makes everything hit even harder. The Arirang World Tour had already been building towards something massive by the time BTS landed in Mexico. The tour opened on April 9th in Goyang, South Korea, and by the time the group arrived in Mexico City, they had already completed their Korean dates, their Japanese run at Tokyo Dome, and their North American stops in Tampa, Florida, and El Paso, Texas. The energy had been building and building with every single show. But Mexico was different. Mexico was personal. BTS had not performed a full solo concert in the country in nearly 11 years. Not since July of 2015. That is over a decade of waiting for Mexican Army. And the moment tickets went on sale, all 3 nights at Estadio GNP Seguros sold out almost instantly. Over 136,000 tickets. Gone. The demand was so overwhelming that Mexico's own president, Claudia Sheinbaum, had personally appealed to South Korea's President Lee Jae-myung to see if additional shows could be added. When BTS arrived in Mexico City on May 6th, the entire country felt it. The day before the first concert, BTS was officially invited to the National Palace, the seat of Mexico's government, where they met with President Sheinbaum herself. After the meeting, all 7 members stepped out onto the balcony of the presidential headquarters and looked out over Zocalo Square, which is one of the largest public squares in the entire world. And the crowd waiting for them? Approximately 50,000 people. 50,000 fans who had gathered there just to see BTS wave at them from a balcony. The square turned completely purple. It looked like a concert had broken out in the middle of the city's most historic landmark. Jimin, standing on that balcony in a sharp classic suit with his long blonde hair catching the light, waved to the crowd with an energy that fans immediately described as a prince from a movie. And when he got back to his hotel, he pulled out his phone and posted a photo of what Zocalo Square looked like from his point of view. His caption was 2 words and a heart. México, gracias corazón negro naipes punto. That was Jimin's first message to the country. Grateful, personal, simple and sincere. And later that evening, in Mexico's real-time X trending charts, the tags, Welcome Jimin to Mexico, and Bienvenido a Mexico Jimin, were sitting at the very top. Because even among all 7 BTS members, Jimin was the one trending individually in Mexico. He was already the most streamed K-pop solo artist in Mexico's Spotify history with over 97 million streams, according to a Forbes report published that same day. Mexico already loved Jimin in a very specific way. And Jimin had come to love them right back. Then came the concert. May 7th, 2026. Estadio GNP Seguros. First night. The stage design for the Arirang World Tour is a 360-degree setup, which means the stage extends into the center of the arena floor, surrounded by fans on all sides. There is nowhere for Jimin to hide. Not that he would ever want to. From the moment BTS opened with Hooligan, the stadium became something close to electric chaos. Songs from the Arirang album like Aliens, Swim, Like Animals, and Merry Go Round, mixed with legendary hits like Butter, Dynamite, and Mic Drop, and at every single moment, 50,000 people sang every single word back at the stage in Korean, in Spanish, in whatever language their love came out in. Jimin was in his element. He had been in his element since the tour started. There is a video from the Tokyo Dome shows of Jimin performing that fans called a masterclass. There were moments during the Tampa run where security guards stationed near the stage were caught completely unable to keep a straight face watching him perform, smiling, visibly stunned by what they were seeing in front of them, and those clips went viral under the phrase the Jimin effect. But Mexico brought out something else in him entirely, because Mexico was giving it all back to him. At one point during the show, Jimin walked to the edge of the stage and delivered a prepared greeting in Spanish. He had a phone in his hand. He had memorized what he wanted to say, and he made sure to get it right. "You listen to our songs a lot, right?" he asked the crowd. The roar of 50,000 people answered him instantly. "Thank you from the bottom of my heart. I didn't know you'd be this amazing here. You really know how to have fun. You're the best. I love you more than anyone." In Japanese during the Tokyo Dome shows, Jimin had read a handwritten letter to fans. In Mexico, he spoke directly in Spanish. Both times, the choice was intentional. Both times, the message was the same: I see you. I came prepared for you. I want you to feel that in a language that belongs to you. And this is the context you need to hold in your mind when we get to what happened next. Because the hat moment, the moment that has now spread across every corner of fans' social media, did not happen on a quiet night. It happened in the middle of one of the loudest, most emotionally charged concerts of the entire tour. Jimin was moving through the crowd sections, interacting with fans near the stage, the way he always does during concerts. He has always been the member who seems to notice what other people miss. There is something about the way Jimin scans a crowd, not looking through the audience, but actually looking at them, that fans have been describing for years. It is a quality that gets talked about every single tour, every single fan meeting, every single live broadcast. Jimin notices people. He remembers faces. He has a kind of perceptiveness that feels almost impossible for someone performing in front of tens of thousands, because in those moments, most artists are managing the performance. Jimin is managing the performance and still finding the individual human being in the crowd who needs to be found. And on the night of May 7th, in the middle of the Arirang World Tour in Mexico City, he found her. A young fan in the audience who was completely overcome with emotion. Crying. The kind of tears that come from somewhere so deep that you cannot hold them back, no matter how hard you try. Maybe she had waited years for this. Maybe this was her first concert. Maybe she had gone through something painful, and BTS's music had been the thing that carried her through it. We don't know her full story, but Jimin saw her face in that crowd of 50,000 people, and he stopped. Not the performance. BTS kept going, the music kept playing. But Jimin stopped moving. He crouched down at the very edge of the stage, right at the barrier, and he pointed at her. Directly at her. Not a general gesture toward the crowd. A specific, clear, intentional point that said, "I see you. You. Right there." He then turned to a nearby staff member and handed over his hat. His own hat that he had been wearing as part of the concert's outfit, the same cowboy-inspired look that the members had worn earlier in the night as a nod to Mexican culture. He handed it to the staff member and indicated clearly that the hat should go to her. The staff member moved through the crowd and found the girl and placed Jimin's hat in her hands. And as this was happening, Jimin looked at her and said 2 words. "Don't cry." 2 words. That's all it was. But if you have ever been in a moment where you were overwhelmed and someone genuinely saw you, not performed sympathy at you, not acknowledged you from a distance, but actually stopped and saw you and said something soft and true, then you know exactly how much 2 words can hold. "Don't cry" from Jimin in that moment was not a dismissal of her emotion. It was a recognition of it. It was him saying, "I see why you're feeling this. And I want you to know that right now, in this moment, you are okay. You are here. You are seen." The girl was embraced almost immediately by 2 people standing next to her, believed to be her parents, who looked like they themselves could barely hold it together. Because what do you do as a parent when your child has waited years for something, when you have watched them love something with their whole heart, and then the person at the center of that love crouches down from the stage and personally makes sure your child is taken care of? The look on the faces of the people around her in those videos says everything. And then the girl put on the hat, Jimin's hat. She put it on her head, picked up her light stick, and she smiled. A smile that fans watching the videos online described as the kind of smile that can only happen after you have cried that hard. A smile that comes from the other side of something real. The video spread everywhere within hours. Comments flooded in from every direction. "This broke me completely. I am not okay. He didn't have to do that. He was in the middle of a performance. He didn't have to do that." That last one keeps coming up because it gets at something important. Jimin did not have to do any of it. Nobody would have blamed him for keeping his focus on the show. 50,000 people were there. The lights, the cameras, the choreography, the vocal runs, all of it is happening simultaneously in a show this size. And Jimin still noticed one crying girl and made the decision to respond. This is not a new version of Jimin. This is who he has always been, and the story is much longer than one concert moment. People who have been ARMY for years will immediately recognize this as a pattern. Jimin's relationship with his fans has always been defined by a quality that is surprisingly rare, even in the world of K-pop, which already tends to prize fan interaction above most other things. It is not just that he is kind to fans, it is that he seems to genuinely perceive them as individuals rather than as an audience. There are old fan accounts from even the earliest BTS fan meetings and fan signs where people describe Jimin maintaining eye contact, asking follow-up questions about things fans had written to him, or noticing that someone seemed nervous, and adjusting his entire energy to make them more comfortable. This is not an act. Jimin does not appear to perform warmth. He seems to simply have it. During BTS's career, there are documented moments of Jimin sitting beside Suga on stage when Suga broke down in tears after seeing his parents in the crowd for the first time, parents who had not initially supported his dream of becoming a musician. There are stories from Jungkook himself about how whenever he feels down or insecure, Jimin is consistently the person who finds him and stays beside him. J-Hope has talked about Jimin being the member who checks in, who notices when someone is off, who shows up without being asked. This is not the narrative that gets built around artists purely for media purposes. These are things said by the people who live and work alongside him and see him without cameras around. And fans see it too. After the Mexico hat moment went viral, the comment sections filled up not just with people reacting to the moment itself, but with people pulling up other moments they had been carrying in their memories for years. The time he stopped a performance to check on an injured staff member. The time he came off stage after a show and immediately looked for a fan who had fainted near the barricade and stayed until he knew they were okay. The quiet ways he acknowledges people in crowds who are struggling. There is a phrase ARMY uses, the Jimin effect. And while it usually gets applied to his visuals or his stage presence, the truth is that the deepest version of the Jimin effect is this, the feeling that he sees you. Not the collective you. You. It connects to something Jimin himself has said in interviews over the years. In his Rolling Stone cover story from the same May 2026 issue, a major 8-part package where each BTS member sat down for an extended interview, Jimin talked about gaining confidence during the making of Arirang. About the journey from the version of himself who was always uncertain, always pushing harder because he was never sure he was enough, to the version of himself who can now stand in the center of a 360-degree stage in front of 50,000 people and feel genuinely present. Not performing presence, actually present. He talked about what it means to be seen by fans and to see them back, that the exchange is real, that he has never felt like concerts are something that happens at fans, but something that happens with them. That philosophy showed up at Estadio GNP Seguros in the most literal possible way. He gave a crying girl his hat. He crouched down from the stage in the middle of a world tour and handed her something of his own. Not a signed photo card prepared in advance, not a pre-planned fan service moment scripted into the set list. An actual spontaneous decision, in the moment, because he saw something real and he responded to it. There is something else worth noting about that hat specifically. BTS wore cowboy hats and Western-inspired styling during parts of the Mexico concert. A deliberate, thoughtful choice to honor Mexican culture and make fans in the country feel celebrated on their own turf. The members wore Ciudad de Mexico t-shirts. They spoke in Spanish. They performed as a group that had arrived in someone else's home and wanted to honor it properly. And Jimin's hat, the one he gave away, was part of that same gesture of respect toward Mexico and its fans. So when he handed it to her, he was not just giving her a piece of stage costume. He was giving her something that was already wrapped in the meaning of that night, in everything BTS had tried to say to Mexico through that show. The girl's parents embraced her. She put on the hat, she waved her light stick and smiled, and 50,000 people around her who had witnessed it Some of them already crying themselves, experience something that goes beyond the normal vocabulary of a concert review. Something that makes you realize why people talk about BTS as more than just a band. Because moments like this are not produced in a marketing department. They happen when an artist is genuinely, deeply, fundamentally paying attention to the people in front of them. And Jimin has been paying that kind of attention for a very long time. The Arirang World Tour continues. After Mexico City, BTS moved to Stanford, California, and then onward through more North American dates, then Asia, then Europe. Over 85 shows across 34 cities in 23 countries, scheduled all the way through 2027. Every single night, there are thousands of people in stadiums who have been waiting years for this. Some of them are going to cry. Some of them are going to stand in that crowd and feel something so large they won't have words for it until much later. And somewhere in the middle of all of that, in the middle of the lights and the music and the choreography and the 360-degree stages and the pyrotechnics, Jimin is going to be scanning the crowd, looking at faces, finding the one person who needs to be found. Because that is who he is. That is what he does. Not because a camera is pointed at him, the cameras find him after. Not because it creates good content. It creates good content because it is genuine. He does it because somewhere in the core of who ParkJimin is, there is a person who came into this industry as an insecure trainee who almost wasn't chosen for BTS, who worked harder than almost anyone around him, who built a career on making people feel seen, and who never lost the instinct to look for the person in the room who most needs to know they are not invisible. A girl cried in a crowd of 50,000 people in Mexico City. Jimin saw her. He crouched down, handed her his hat, and told her not to cry. And for a moment, in the middle of one of the biggest concerts of the year, everything else in that stadium went quiet in the best possible way, not in sound, but in meaning. Because in that moment, there was only one fan and one artist, and the distance between the stage and the crowd collapsed completely. That is what ParkJimin brings to a world tour. That is what he has always brought. And for one girl in Mexico City, on the night of May 7th, 2026, standing in a purple sea with her parents beside her and a hat on her head that she will probably keep for the rest of her life, it was everything. If this kind of story is the reason you're here, you already know what Jimin means to this fandom. And if you are new and you're watching this, and you're wondering what makes him different, now you know. It is not just the voice, though the voice is extraordinary. It is not just the dancing, though the dancing is on another level entirely. It is not just the visuals, or the stage presence, or the records on Spotify, or the Rolling Stone covers. It is this, a crouched-down moment at the edge of a stage, a hat, 2 words, don't cry, and a smile on the other side of all of it. Drop a comment below. Have you ever had a moment like this at a concert? A moment where a performer genuinely saw you. And if you were at the Mexico shows, we want to hear everything. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new here, and we'll see you in the next one.